Okay, guys, welcome to the second episode of the Accented Stoic. We are here with my friend Kade Miller.
What up, guys?
Kade Miller is he's a very old friend of mine. We grew up together playing football when we were younger, and I kind of have just been friends up until now. It's been almost like a decade now, hasn't it?
Yeah, maybe even longer.
Yeah, probably
15
actually.
years
Yeah,
or so.
yeah. So it's been a long time. Kade is currently at Utah State studying finance.
Yep.
He is also currently setting for a company called ES Solar, doing door-to-door sales.
Yep.
And
Not for much longer.
Yes. Let's not push that to ES Solar.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and he's done phenomenally in door-to-door sales. He's about a year away from graduating from Utah State and has recently just started creating content on his own fitness channel. So I'll drop the links and all that kind of stuff in the description for following him on that. But today I want to talk a little bit about Kade's fitness and his fitness journey. So because Kade is going into fitness and whatnot, I want to talk a little bit more about that. So tell me, man, obviously I've seen your journey from a big standpoint, I guess. So I'm actually going to put that down. I've seen your journey from when we were playing high school ball up until now. You've lost a significant amount of weight. So tell me about like kind of the motivations behind that, especially playing O-line in high school. Why did you feel like you wanted to lose that weight and in terms like be healthier, I guess?
Yeah. So always just growing up the whole time, I've always had a problem with overeating. I think genetically, I have more hunger than I need for my body to produce and actually use that energy. So never really thought it was a problem as a kid. Like I always recognized I was a little bit bigger. But it was never really a problem, and I didn't quite understand calories in, calories out type method. So I always just kind of used it to my advantage. Playing sports, I was always a little bit bigger, which was a good thing because, especially with football, you could play O-line, and I was typically bigger than my opponent. So I was pretty decent. So that was pretty much my whole childhood. And then high school came, high school football. It was crazy because we would be having 2-a-day workouts and practice every day.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah.
Brutal.
And so I was outputting a lot of energy, and somehow I was still getting bigger, gaining weight. And I started to notice that was a problem about my senior year, but again, I was still playing football, needed the size, still bigger than most people, and it played into my advantage. But once that season ended, I realized I was kind of just left with all this extra weight with nothing really to do with it. And so I started watching fitness content on YouTube, mostly like Greg Doucette, Will Tennyson, and like Jesse James West. Started with those guys. Mm-hmm. And I just saw like their physique and what they could do with their body and like how high of energy they had, and like they could still push a good amount of weight. And so I kind of fell in love that way with like bodybuilding type workouts. And I noticed, and it was mostly like through the content, that kind of content I was watching, the calorie deficit. And like I started getting into more of like the losing weight journey type of content. And I was like, okay, cool. Why don't I just do that myself? So that's kind of what started that process. And then obviously over the last couple of years, it's been a whole journey to apply that into my life.
Yeah, and how much weight have you lost from the heaviest you've weighed up until now?
Yeah, so at my heaviest, I was about 272. Jeez. And that was right, and I'm 6'2". That was right at the end of the football season, so about November of 2020.
Okay.
And right now, I weigh about 190 pounds. Oh. The lightest I've been was about 184, so
almost 100 pounds down. Though.
Almost.
Like very close to getting 100 pounds down. That's crazy. So I want to talk a little bit about football because, and this is kind of interesting, and I think about this a lot. When it comes to football, the size advantage is important, especially at a younger age. You don't fully understand like calories in, calories out, like thermodynamics. And so football rewarded people for being bigger. And I remember, which to this day is still true, coaches telling us like if you need to get bigger, eat 3 peanut butter sandwiches at night and like 2 cups of milk every night, and like you will get bigger, which is true. You will get bigger, as you said, via thermodynamics. However, probably not in the healthiest way possible.
Right.
And so, how was it trying to shift your mindset with that? Because especially for football, that's not viewed as unhealthy, right? Like even though your BMI is higher, and I would say a lot of these NFL players and college players where BMI is definitely higher on that index, it's used for that specific purpose, right? Of power, generating power. I mean, being a blocker, right?
Yeah.
Standing in people's way, the immovable wall. And so, how did you shift your mindset when you wanted to start losing weight? How was that process of like trying to not convince yourself, but tell yourself that like, okay, this is probably extra, this is probably unhealthy, and is no longer rewarded the same way in everyday life the way it was in football?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think, yeah, obviously the size was a good thing, and I didn't recognize like how big I was. I can look back on, I remember I took a picture right as I started that weight loss journey at my biggest. I mean, I recognized I was probably a little bit, fatter than most people our age, but I didn't realize how big I actually was. And I can look back now and realize, wow, I probably was pushing 50% body fat.
Yeah.
At that point. I think the biggest shift that I had was just how cool it looks to be lean. Like that lean aesthetic it's just it's an amazing look. Like, I don't know, you go to the gym or you go to the pool and you see the guys with the six pack, the defined arms, defined chest. Such a cool look, and I wanted that bad. I think that was my biggest shift.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about that, because I feel like a lot of people sometimes criticize the idea of chasing like the six pack, chasing like, for some people criticize quote diet culture and like what that really means, I guess. And so a lot of people criticize the idea of chasing that six pack or chasing that like lean physique, and some people are like, that's unrealistic, like these guys are on steroids. However, I do think it is a good point to note that is a good goal to put in your mind for down the future. And by the way, totally achievable, even for natural people. Like, it is definitely achievable. But where I'm going with this is the idea that like sometimes people say you just need to be doing things to get healthier. But at the beginning, like, especially if you're that big, your motivation at first is not to be healthier, right? Like, you're not choosing chips, or you're not choosing like apples and vegetables over chips and cookies and all this other stuff simply because you want to like be healthier. Like, if that was the case, you wouldn't be that big to begin with, right? And so chasing like a goal helps you to get onto the path of, okay, actually I notice when my body is not feeling good, when I put things that aren't good in it, when my calorie deficit isn't the way it needs to be, or my calories aren't the way they need to be. I can feel that in my body when I don't work out and that kind of stuff, right? And so now that you're, have lost a substantial amount of weight, what is your goal now, one? And two, how are you going to, like, how has that goal changed for you? Like, do you still feel like you're still trying to drive solely for the leanness, or do you feel like you're more health motivated now behind your goals?
Yeah, I think now, because right at the beginning of when I started the weight loss, it definitely wasn't for health. I felt healthy at that weight still. I mean, I was only 18, 19 years old, so as one is. But now definitely it's more for, I recognize that if I have a healthier body mass index, a lower body fat, I'm definitely going to feel better and perform better. So, I mean, I would say now at 22, 5 or so years older than when I started, I feel more energetic and more healthier in general than I did at 18, 19 with that higher body mass, which is pretty crazy because a couple years older. My goal now though is it's weight loss is a hard thing because you never really can dial in the exact weight that you're going to be and the exact look that that's going to be. Typically, from what I've seen online, it's you're going to have to go a little bit longer in the calorie deficit, weigh a little bit less than what you think originally. So my actually original goal was to weigh 200 pounds, and in my mind, I imagined that was an absolute chiseled physique, six pack, you know, definition all throughout my body. But then I got to 200 pounds and I realized I'm still 30% body fat. I need to go a little bit longer. So right now I'm about 190 pounds and had to readjust that goal a little bit. My goal now is to weigh 170 pounds. And in my mind, I think that will give me a visible six pack. Because right now I don't have that. I have a little bit of definition, but so I'm gonna plan now is to cut 1 pound a week, which I think is a pretty healthy, attainable thing to do. For about 12, 15 weeks, get down to that weight and then see how I look. Because my goals right now are mostly just visual, mostly for myself at this point. The original motivation was to, you know, look chiseled for other people, you know, mainly girls.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, I won't lie, obviously it's still for that a little bit, but it's more so for myself just to see how far I can push myself and how good I can look aesthetically as well.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, and I like that mindset has shifted less externally and more internally, right, to just being like who you want to be as an individual and like reaching that max potential. I think there's lessons to be learned on the idea that like things take longer than you think they do. I remember hearing this, I can't remember where, but people say that like it's you overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what you can do in 10, right? Like a lot of people think that things will take a lot faster, but then when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's actually a good amount of time put towards your goals. You know, you can achieve a lot in that 10-year time span, right? And so let's say that you get to the 170, right, and you get that physique. What do you think the goal would be then, and like where do you go from there, I guess?
So I mean, I'm just so focused on that right now, getting down to that 170, just because this has been such a long process of trying to achieve that goal of having visible abs. So once I get there, I haven't thought too much about it, to be honest with you. I think the goal after that will be to maintain that physique throughout the rest of my life, which that in itself is a goal and a battle. As a natural bodybuilder, you can typically, from what I've heard, you can typically build about 4 to 6 pounds of muscle a year without any enhancements, which I do not ever plan on doing enhancements. Just the long-term negative health effects that I've read up on does not seem worth it to me. But 4 to 6 pounds of muscle a year is still, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but visually there's a big difference in that. So I think once I get down to that weight, I'm just going to focus on keeping a lean body mass, low body fat percentage, somewhere in the range of 10 to 15%, and then try my best to just improve. Mostly focus on adding that muscle, and to your point, like it's going to take me a long time. But the nice thing about natural bodybuilding is you don't really hit your peak physique until about 35 to 40 years old. So I still have at least another decade, probably more, of putting on those 4 to 6 pounds of muscle, which if I'm consistent, which that's a long period of time to do, so it's going to be hard, it would be a pretty sweet physique to have.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about consistency in your goals and all that kind of stuff, and how that's looked. I mean, quite honestly, you know, like you said, you had that goal to weigh 200 pounds, got to the 200 pounds, realized that like you actually want to lose 30 more pounds, and so now you're on your next cutting phase for your next weight loss journey of gaining a 170, which losing 30 pounds for anybody is significantly hard, right? Like losing the 70 pounds is really a feat on its own, right? And so consistency, consistency is something that I've been thinking about a lot in the the last few weeks, especially with the new year coming around. Like everyone's whole mindset is always like, how can I be more consistent, right? And so I define consistency as being able to do the same behavior regardless of the situation, right? So consistency to me is being able to, let's take working out for example, being able to implement the behavior of working out regardless of where you go, regardless of what the holiday is, regardless of if you have gym equipment or not, right? Like being able to consistently do that. Eating calories properly and hitting your calories, right? Regardless of if you go out or you stay in, or if you're at home, or if you're, in, being able to understand what that means, right? And so, how have you found consistent? Like, how have you managed to consistently lose weight, and how's your consistency journey been for those 70 pounds, and what do you plan on doing for the next 30 pounds?
Yeah, I would say that I have been pretty consistent. I've been mostly consistent. That's why I've been able to lose this weight. But I have not even close to been perfectly consistent. So I served a church mission for 2 years in Texas. And in Texas, they have a culture of eating really good food and a lot of really good food. So before that point, I was weighing about 217 pounds about. This was roughly 8 months after I started losing weight. So from that 270, from when I started to the 217, in that 8 month span, I was almost perfectly consistent. And you can see the results.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of weight to lose in that short period of time. But then I moved to Texas for 2 years, and in those 2 years, I went from 217 to about 250. So regressed significantly. Consistency obviously was not there. And like you said, it was the external circumstances that I allowed to affect my goal. Was not consistent there. But then I got back home to Utah and I locked back in, and I went back from about 250 to, to now about 190 pounds. So, but that's been over the span of 2.5 years. So that's taken a little bit longer. And I would say I've had spurts of probably 4 to 5 months at a time where I'll be perfectly consistent and I achieve freaking great things. And my physique looks amazing and I'm losing weight every week. But it's hard because there's temptations. Obviously, when you're in a calorie deficit for months at a time, your hunger levels are insane. And I was able to deal with that for a long time. But then obviously I wasn't as consistent and I regressed and obviously haven't lost as much weight since those periods. But I will say, I think, and I'm not sure if I'm jumping the gun here, but I think your systems and the input that you put in and your plan is so important. Because recently what I've been doing is I've been doing a way heavier calorie deficit, just trying to lose weight faster. And I've actually halted my progress significantly doing that because I'll be great, but only for 5 to 6 days at a time. And then I can't maintain it any longer and I binge and I ruin all that progress in a day. So I think my plan going forward now is to increase those calories a little bit, make those days a little more doable, make my plan a little more flexible, but focus on still making progress, just slower and over a longer period of time. And whenever I've done that, I've seen consistency and consistent results.
Yeah, back into it. So I really like the idea of talking about systems. We both have read Atomic Habits and we've conversed about Atomic Habits and kind of how much we really enjoy that book, right? And Atomic Habits goes over systems, right? And thinking about systems, I've used systems as with that definition of consistency, that systems are actions taken to allow an environment or to create an environment that allows more positive behavior towards your goals, right? And so there are many examples of that, right, within your life, and you talked a little bit about them. And so the interesting thing that I think about with systems is that it has to be hard enough that it drives progress in the goal, right? But easy enough that you will actually hit it consistently, right? The example for this within your specific life has been kind of that like hard dieting, right? Dieting super extremely for 5 to 6 days and then coming off of it and binging because it's too hard to consistently hit, right? And so I feel as if a lot of people view consistency as something that needs to be mastered on like a I am consistent or I am not, and it's more of like it's not quote binary, it's a continuum, like how consistent can I be, and just making sure that the mark is a little bit higher than, obviously 50%, but within the maybe 60 to 70% range. But I think a lot of people are so focused on the idea of like I need to discipline myself to continue to stay on the hard dieting, and less about I actually need to like maybe find the correct balance of where I can hit the peak of distance and driving the actual goal itself, right? Like obviously you don't want to lose only 0.10 pounds for every week, right? Like you want to sustainably, but you also probably don't want to be losing like 5 to 10 pounds in 1 week, because that's not sustainable either, right? And so your idea of dialing it back to like that 1 pound per week and resetting it, I think is huge. And so when it comes to like the mental mindset of fitness, like what draws you to fitness? Do you like fitness just because like you like looking jacked, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? Or do you find that there are, I don't know, lessons to be learned and things that you love more about fitness? I mean, on Real Talk, knowing that we played football together for so long, you've been in fitness for, over, I mean, if Little League starts in like when you're what, like freaking 7 or 8, yeah. And what, 22 now?
Yeah.
So let's put it at 7, right? That's like, 15 years. So you've been doing fitness for like 15 years, and your journey on that has been different. What piques you on fitness, especially with going into fitness content and that kind of stuff? Like what aspires you to continue to keep going with fitness?
Yeah, for sure. I think the aesthetic part of it is definitely a part of it. I wouldn't even say it's the main focus. I would say what draws me most to fitness is probably the mental side of things. When I think about a perfect day in my mind, it always starts with going to the gym or going on a run, doing something physical. I feel like it just sets up my day to the point where I know that, one, I took a win early in the morning, I did something productive, and I got better. And a lot of things in life, like work, school, just other areas of life, it's not as linear as fitness is. With fitness, you go to the gym, you eat right, you're gonna get better. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right.
But say with work, you show up every day, you do your best, you still might get fired. It's not as linear. So I think with fitness, it's just it's a very linear progress model.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. It makes me feel better physically. It makes my mind more clear mentally. On off days versus days when I go to the gym, there's a big difference in my productivity as well. And it's just, I think the human spirit is just meant to always be striving for more, always trying to improve. That's that timer. Freaking remix. Okay. Do you want me to reset it?
Just reset it.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean the human spirit is just meant to always be striving to improve, to become something better. And I think it's so straightforward with fitness. I think that's why I'm so drawn to it, because I know that I can set a goal and I know exactly what I need to do in order to achieve it. And I just have to put in the work every day, and that just, it makes me happy.
Yeah. No, I like that. I had a conversation with somebody one time. They couldn't understand why. So, for context, there was a group of us. There was like 4 of us, and one of these guys was just chiseled. He was just jacked out of his mind. and the other guy was not very chiseled, right? Not to say that he was, unfit or whatever, but he just wasn't as fit as this one guy. And this one guy talked about how he loved taking his shirt off. Like he loved being shirtless because he honestly did like the idea of like showing that to the world. And this other guy couldn't understand that. Like he couldn't fathom the idea of like always wanting to take your shirt off, right? And I kind of reflected on that after the fact and after the situation. And this is kind of what I came up with. You being chiseled or you being jacked, right? Or being fit, whatever the case is, losing weight is really one of the only ways you can actually personify a characteristic, and that characteristic is discipline and hard work and ethic, right? Like it's a physical representation of how disciplined you are, right? Not saying that like, because again, characteristic traits aren't binary, they're continuums, right? Like it's not you are or you are not disciplined, it's you are more or less disciplined for specific things. And when it comes to working out, like you being able to look jacked is a physical representation to the world that like I actually am disciplined in one form or the other, right? And why I actually think in a subconscious way a lot of people find, more fit, healthier people attractive, because and why a lot of those people tend to be, people who are fit tend to be, more successful or whatever the case is, right? Because they have actually unlocked the base characteristic trait of discipline, and that isn't just used with fitness. You can apply that anywhere in your life. And so one of the things that I found fitness to be interesting is kind of what you said, like the mental aspect of it, like being able to understand that you can put a physical representation to who you are as a person by looking jacked to yourself, even if it is for nobody else, and apply those into other areas of your life to actually propel your life forward, right? And to that note, it's something that you have to continue to do, right? Like a person can be fit and fully put on weight again and like lose all of that progress. And so it's not just the single time physical representation, it's a continuous physical representation of who you are as a person. And so what do you feel like some of the biggest characteristics you have developed from being in the fitness world?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned your one friend that, he noticed that people noticed that he exemplified discipline. And I've definitely noticed that with myself as well. But, back when I was bigger, at my biggest, 272, comparing myself to now, I would say people definitely treat me differently. People look at me differently. There's different conversations that are being had. When you're big, like it's sounds wrong, but it's just natural. Like for us, whenever I see a big person, just naturally, I think most people kind of think, wow, that person is not very disciplined. Like they just let food control them.
Yeah.
Which may or may not be true. They might be the most disciplined person ever with work.
Yeah.
But they just have a really bad relationship with food. Right. I would say, now that I look a little bit more physically disciplined, I get talked to a little bit more seriously. I get taken a little bit more seriously, I would say too. So I'd say that's one of the advantages as well.
Do you think that was fair to you? Like knowing that you were bigger, do you think it was fair for you to be treated differently?
Absolutely, I think so. I wasn't as disciplined in that area of my life. I would just kind of, whenever I was hungry, I would eat whatever sounded good to me. And that's just, it's not a very disciplined lifestyle. It's not healthy. And I think it's just, again, a natural reaction. And I can't blame people for, doing what they naturally think is and I presented myself that way too. Maybe as a cope, but yeah, I think it's a fair response. Yeah.
So now that I guess let's pose this on the continuum, because it is not are you disciplined or are you not disciplined? Do you feel you are more disciplined now? And if you are, how have you felt that bleed into other aspects of your life? Or have you felt that bleed into other aspects of your life, right? Work, school, whatever the case is.
Definitely. So, I mean, as far as discipline goes, I would say I am more disciplined. Um, as far as, just having willpower to do things. But I think it's easier than people think as well. If you just set up a calorie deficit and you figure out what that is for you, and you're in a slight calorie deficit, it's honestly not that hard. Now there is some difficulty to it. It's not a piece of cake, but it's not as hard as you might think. So I wouldn't say, oh, my life is completely changed. I'm perfect. I'm David Goggins-esque, doing everything perfectly, the hardest man on earth. No. But I think once I've seen that reward and the result of losing that weight, being treated differently, feeling better, having more energy, it's addicting, I would say. Seeing that progress and those results, it made me think, okay, well, what other areas of my life could I set up a system like this for to make progress, to improve, and to become better at? Obviously my focuses right now are, school and work. So taking that same formula, creating a daily plan, what do I need to do for school or for work today in order to succeed? And then just doing that every day over a long period of time and adjusting it as needed. Absolutely. I've seen amazing results from that. Way more than I did before the weight loss.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned.
That's amazing. So knowing all of this, right, and being able to understand that it leaks into other parts of your life, I think there's value in that, because people don't understand that when you unlock discipline in just one area of your life, you can apply it into other areas of your life. And so, in a roundabout way, being disciplined, quote, or learning discipline as the skill set for, working out and being healthier, once you unlock the ability to be disciplined, you can put that towards anywhere else in your life. And so, in theory, working out doesn't just help you with your physical goals, it also helps you with, your work goals, your school goals, your relationship goals, right? You can put that same skill set into all of these other things. And so I find it interesting because I like to look at people and what it is they're doing in life. I guess inputs, if you will, right? Or outputs, things like careers and jobs and love relationships and fitness and all that kind of stuff. And I like to break down all of these terms of, being a good husband or being a healthy person, and break it down in a skill tree set type of way to what are the base goals, base traits that these people have, right? In reality, people who are successful business owners or successful content creators or all these things, there's a lot that goes into that, right? Being a successful business owner is understanding, how money moves and good ideas and marketing and all this stuff. And so it seems like complex skills, but really they all just break out into very simple skills, right? And so the idea that you can achieve these basic skills and just use them for other things, I think is kind of a transforming way of being able to think about fitness and health, because it doesn't just help you with your physical lifestyle, it also helps you with everything else around you, right? And so kind of going into that, I have this idea, and this is something that I think personally, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is that physical fitness, I feel, has actually been a tremendous way to help me specifically mentally with anything mental or whatever. I feel like being able to focus on my physical lifestyle, working out, being healthier, eating properly, has genuinely actually improved my mental health on a significant basis, right? Not just with self-image things, but literally just for every aspect of life. And I feel like it's the easiest way to go in, because working out kind of has most of the base level characteristics of what can fix your life in other aspects, right? Discipline, working hard, self-control, like being able to be consistent, right? Like all of these things, I feel like exude characteristics that can help you for other parts of your life. And so I've always kind of told people my thought on this, that I believe fitness to be like almost the entry point of like fixing mental health, right? Like now there are a lot of things to be said about people who have mental health issues, right? Like that is a complex situation and scenario, and there's a lot that goes into that. And there are even, some people who kind of go the opposite end on mental health when they become too obsessed with physical fitness and kind of let that control their lives, right? But more or less, I think for a person who just overall wants to improve their quality of life, physical fitness is the easiest entry points to get into that. So I want to hear your thoughts on that, knowing that you have almost lost 100 pounds now. What are your ideas and takes on that way of thinking, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, let's say you're depressed, right? Are you going to feel better being depressed at 300 pounds? Or are you going to feel better being depressed at 170 pounds and absolutely chiseled?
Right.
It's like you said, it's the easiest way to get started on it. For me, it's definitely helped a lot with mental health. Just the physical side of it. If I'm ever feeling like overwhelmed by whatever's going on in life, and I feel like I can't do anything about it, it's one of those things where it's just an external circumstance, and I genuinely can't do anything about it. If I go and do something physical, I'm feeling better about it. It's not a complete cure,
Right.
obviously, but it almost gives you a little bit of control over scenarios like that. It's a lot better than just doing nothing and sitting in that. For me, one thing that I've started doing recently is getting back into running. I've been going through spurts of it over the past couple years, and it's hard. It is freaking hard. I've gotten to the point now where I actually enjoy and look forward to going to the gym. It doesn't take any discipline for me to go, and I'm just kind of addicted to it at that point. One of those healthy addictions. But I was thinking about it, and I remember back when I wasn't as excited to go to the gym, and when it took a little bit more for me to get there and to get a good workout in. And the amount of growth that I was making physically and mentally during that period is huge, because when you push yourself, your mental health is similar to your physical health, and the fact that the farther you push yourself, the more bandwidth that you have to complete something harder. So I've started running over the past couple months, and what I do is I'm not a professional runner by any means. Not fast, can't run very far, but what I do is once a week, and I'm going to try and increase this a little bit. I'll just go for a run. Typically, been doing on a treadmill, and I just track how far I go. And it doesn't matter how long it takes me. It doesn't matter if I need to stop and take a break. It doesn't matter if I need to walk for a little bit of it. I'm going to go farther than I did the last time. So just this past week, about a week and a half ago, I ran 4.16 miles. And so my whole goal was to run farther than that, to make progress, to push myself physically, yeah, but mostly mentally. Because when you're running, and it's just minutes and minutes and minutes of just the same thing over and over again. You're just moving your feet, and your mind the whole time is just telling you to stop, just begging you to stop. And you have to push that off, not just for maybe 30 seconds to a minute like you would in like a set of lifting weights. You have to push that for 20, 30, 40 minutes at a time. And that's a long time to be fighting those thoughts. And I've found a lot of growth in that, because it's probably the hardest thing that I do physically right now. But every week I'm able to go in and go a little bit farther, and a little bit farther, and a little bit farther. And my goal for this next year is to be able to run a half marathon, which isn't an exciting feat. A lot of people can do that. But for me, that's huge because I've never really been able to run much more than a mile at a time. But just recently, just a couple days ago, I was able to run almost 5 miles in one spurt. Yeah, I had to take a break. Yeah, I walked for a little bit, for a portion of it. Yeah, it took me probably an hour, but I was able to run that. And I just think there's a lot of value in pushing yourself just a little bit farther and making progress, and it gets addicting, and you start to feel better about yourself, and you start to feel like you can accomplish more in life. And I think that's how you build confidence as well. So that's what I've been working on recently, and I've definitely seen that seep over into my mental health that way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, I think that's interesting, and I like that concept that like you are just doing small incremental like progress steps, right? I think people are so focused on the idea that you need to like take this giant leap forward every single week or every single day, losing weight, right? Like 5 pounds, 3 pounds, something ginormous, when really even something as small as like being able to just show up consistently. Yeah, it might not be the 100-yard step you want, but all you need is like a few centimeters, right? Like you literally just need to just like step forward in some way. I personally don't believe that you stay stagnant at anything. Like every day it either like you get better or you get worse, like atrophy or hypertrophy. Like it either is becoming like you're gaining the skill or you're losing the skill, in regards to how often you're using it, right? And so I love that the idea that like I don't need it to be faster, I don't need to be X, like I don't need to hit, I just need farther than it was yesterday. And even if, you know, starting out at first, that first baseline step could literally be like, I can only run straight for like a quarter mile. So I just want to be able to run at least 0.26 tomorrow. Like if it is only one step extra, you know, at least I can continue to go forward. And I think the thinking about that, that I also want to hear your thoughts on is that a lot of people think that progression, a lot of people think that 1% progression is just linear, but it's not linear. Even if for the first couple times it's only 0.26, 0.27, eventually it becomes exponential. Then that 0.27 turns into 0.30, turns into 0.50, and things start stacking on each other to exponentially increase the curve. And so when running, I love that you're getting into running, and this, have you seen that in your running phase, even just throughout like, not even just throughout this like last couple weeks, but like even throughout your entire time of running? Like have you seen that like as you slowly just tell yourself that I just need to get further, that exponentially you actually get better? Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, when I first started, so I think my first run, my goal was to run 1 mile, and it was hard. Like I mean, I was probably going a little bit too fast, but it was super hard. Got through it, ran the mile, felt terrible about myself that I could only run a mile. I was like, man, I'm out of shape. Next week, come in, and it still sucked, and the mile still sucked. But I ran, I think it was 1.04 miles. So 0.4 miles. What's that? Like 30 seconds worth of running? Not that much, but it was more. And fast forward a couple months, doing that every single week, and it sucks every single week. I mean, yeah, like I said, the one before this I ran 4.16, and then just barely on a 1 week span, I increased that to 4.65 miles. So over a half mile difference there. Maybe that's exactly half mile.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, like you said, it's exponential. And I mean, mentally, I think it's kind of the same deal, because it's like, okay, I increased, 0.4 miles last week. Let's see if I can improve 0.5 or 0.6, and then you just keep going. And I think that's a big way if you're looking to like get ahead of people in this life. If you're competitive, because I'm super competitive, and I kind of view everything in the same sense of how do I get ahead in what I'm doing. And I think most people, they try and increase and try and get super really good at the thing and make a lot of progress right at the beginning. And maybe if it's even, an extended period of time, 1 or 2 months, like that's a decent a period of time. And there are a lot of people that will put in that amount of work to get really good at something right at the beginning. But the way you separate yourself is after that. And let's say this. Let's say you're running and you're competing with someone else that's running. And you both run a mile the first week. But then the second week, that other person says, okay, well, I'm going to run farther than you this week. And they run maybe a quarter mile farther than you physically can that week, and you can't go any farther. And then they keep doing that for, let's say, two months. And now they've ran, a mile farther than you that week. And there they are, and they're, excited that they're doing better than you. They're stoked with their progress, and then they start to get comfortable. And they don't rely on their systems, and they think they've made it. And, maybe they've accomplished something good. But if you're willing to just keep going and keep relying on those systems, keep the motivation that you have, whatever it is, even if you don't have motivation, just keep working on that progress. A year down the line, you're freaking running,
marathon.
Yeah, you're running a half marathon while he's still running 2 or 3 miles. And I think that's why we have, however many 80, 90 years on this earth, is because most people aren't going to be progressing for long periods of time. But if you're the person that can sit there and say every year, I'm going to get better, and then you actually do it, and you do that for 80 or 90 years, you're going to be in a completely different ballpark than the person that makes a goal for, 6 months, and then most people won't even accomplish that because that's still a pretty long period of time.
Right.
But say they do, they accomplish it, and then they get complacent, they get comfortable, they get proud of themselves, and then they slip back. But if you're the type of person that can just keep going and keep renewing that process, keep adjusting your systems and your inputs, you're going to be so far ahead in life.
Yeah, I would agree. I like the idea of the competitive advantage that consistency brings. Like at the end of the day, what really drives you apart from, quote losers and quote winners is how long can you do something? And even just that, like if you just do one thing for extremely long, like that in and of itself will just like put you much farther ahead than anybody else, right? And so how long can you do something, and then how hard can you work at that thing, right? And so, but even the hard, like working hard at the thing, like you said with the running analogy, it's like if you just commit yourself to even increasing farther than yesterday for 5 years, right? Like you will be running like miles longer than the person who just wants to like get comfortable and kind of stay complacent at that one place, right? And so I think the idea is like consistency breeding the idea of progress, right? Like consistency breeds progress, and progress will eventually breed like the byproduct of your goals, right? We've talked about this in the James Clear book, where he talks about the idea of a basketball team who is hyperfixated on winning the championship, right? But if the team just focuses on like the overall quality of practice, increasing 1% in specific individual areas, naturally winning becomes the byproduct of just focusing in on like hitting the daily wins, right? And so I think there's something to be had about like, yes, I want to lose this amount of weight, but not fixating on that end goal and just being like, I need to lose that amount of weight, or I want to run that half marathon. I want to sell that business, but you need to focus on like the incremental small things you can change now. The systems, right? Like the systems are what build everything. It's what carries anything. Like nobody beats the system. Nobody outbeats the system. You can't, over discipline the system. The system is what carries you through anything for any goal, right? And so being able to build the correct system that will allow you, and like we talked about earlier, the system that will allow you to go the longest and improve the most at the same time, right? Still hit your quality of life. Like, yeah, maybe your system needs to be tightened up a little bit if you don't plan on losing the 50 pounds for like 5 years, right? Or like 10 years. Maybe we can tighten that up a bit, right? But being able to do it on a consistent basis will get you there. And to that point, I also think this is interesting that even if you had the idea that I want to lose 50 pounds in 5 years, something small, easy for you to get into, right? 10 pounds a year, which is not even a pound a month, right?
Yeah.
Setting yourself up for that, if you still consistently hit the daily goals that drive you to that losing 50 pounds or whatever in 5 years, I feel like you would find that a lot of people would actually hit their goals way faster, because again, that exponential factor, that like you would naturally get better at doing things. You would actually potentially enjoy them a little bit more. And so that line actually doesn't become linear on that 5 years. Maybe you might hit that in like the year, or maybe even if it's 2 years, right? And so I think that's an important thing to think about is the systems of life and moving forward. So with that in mind, what are the systems that you are trying to build this year for year 2026? What are the things that you want to improve in your life?
Yeah, so I'll start with fitness. Obviously, I want to lose those last 20 or so pounds. So my system for that is going to be the same that it has been for, and the same that it is for everyone for losing weight. You set a calorie goal, and you track your weight with that, and you hit it every freaking day. So you eat those calories, and then you test it every week or every other week, and if you're not losing weight, adjust it. Decrease your calories for the day, and then keep going with that, and soon enough you're gonna lose the weight. So calorie deficit as far as fitness, and I think this is another important point too, is that the more that you follow your system and you're consistent with it, the more you're gonna learn about that system as well, and you're gonna get better at it too. So like comparing, my fitness and nutritional knowledge to when I first started my calorie deficit to now, the basis is still the same. I have to eat less calories than I burn in order to lose weight. But now I know a little bit more, macros. I know how to train significantly better than I did when I first started the weight loss, or even back in high school when we were playing football. The more you do something, typically the better you're going to get at it, especially if you're consistent with it. So yeah, follow that system with nutrition. It's pretty straightforward that way. With work, obviously I have some moving parts to it. That's another big focus of my life. I'm trying to start my career studying finance, trying to get into financial planning. Still a beginner at that thing, and I think a lot of people are afraid of being beginners at certain things, which myself included. I don't know much about it. And I think if you just take the time to take extra time to learn about that field and to learn what you actually need to do, and then set up your system according to that knowledge, and obviously you're probably going to have to alter it every once in a while, then you're going to get better at it, and you're going to figure it out. So that's my big thing with work right now, is figure it the freak out. I'm a beginner. I realize that I got to figure out what exactly I'm going to do there, and once I do, then I'll focus on how do I get better at it. Another focus of my life is school. I haven't been doing as good as I wanted to this last semesters, and I did have a system set up for it, and this is a good point too. I had a system set up for it. I followed it almost every day, and the outcome of that system wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, the result. So now I'm going to go back in. I'm going to assess what I was doing. My goal was to at least do an hour of schoolwork, homework, studying every single day of the week, 7 days a week, because naturally I freaking hate it. I absolutely hate doing schoolwork. That is the hardest part of my life right now, is doing that schoolwork. It just naturally takes so much willpower for me to start studying and to keep studying. So that's why I have this system, because it takes the emotion out of it. And I can be having the worst day of my life. My dog dies. My family's in an argument. Work was terrible that day. I had someone yell at me. But I'm still going to study for my hour, because that's my system. And at the end of the day, this is the way I have it set up. I have a whiteboard in my room. I have check boxes next to my systems for each part of my day, and at the end of the day, I go in and I check it off if I did it, and it adds a little bit of accountability. David Goggins was the one that actually taught me that. He had a mirror that he would go and he would check off every night. And I think it just adds accountability. When you don't hit the goal, you feel like crap because you got to put an X in that.
Yeah.
And you have to look at it for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
But if you accomplish it, then you get a check, you get a little dopamine spike, and you can see that day you accomplished your goal. So back to my point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, okay, I didn't get the grades I wanted. I didn't do as well as I thought, but I still followed my system. The system's broken. I got to adjust the system. Yeah. So maybe this semester I go in and I say, okay, I have to do an hour and a half of studying every day, which sounds like absolute crap. So maybe I'll maybe I'll postpone my lunch so that I have my lunch after I study. Or maybe I study first thing in the morning. Kind of just trial and error, figure it out, but regardless, that has to change. That part of the system has to change. So yeah, I would say those are my focuses this year.
I love that, and I love the idea that if I didn't get the outcome I wanted, but I followed the system to a T, the system is broken. I think that's there's a ton of value in that way of thinking, because a lot of people think, especially when you attach emotion to the outcome, which a lot of people will, and it's hard for you not to attach emotion. Like, you try your best, but it's hard for you to not attach emotion to the job you want, or the fitness, the physique that you want, or the relationship that you want, regardless of what it is. When you attach emotion to that, a lot of people think, I didn't get the outcome I wanted because I am not disciplined. I am lazy because I am who I am, and there's nothing that I can change about that, right? And the idea that's, okay, this is the outcome, I didn't hit that, the system is broken. And in a weird way, everyone else thinks about that type of way in all aspects of life, I feel like, except for the inter-reflection of who you are, right? Like, if you build something, let's take an IKEA chair, and you sit on the chair. The purpose of the chair is for you to sit on it and be able to, enjoy dinner or whatever. If you sit on the chair and it breaks, oftentimes you'll be like, okay, I probably put something wrong here. Like, I didn't do something the right way, the way it was supposed to be built. Or even in work, right? Like, a lot of the time you say, for me, I do marketing, and so if I don't hit an outcome, it's like, okay, it's not that the outcome was flawed or something like that, or me, the system is broken. I need to fix something in that system. And knowing that as well, I think it's easier to see that other people have done it, right? Like, there are people that have actually achieved these goals. There are people who sit on these chairs, right? Like, IKEA didn't just send me this or whatever. People actually can do this. So if I am not achieving it, it's not because I suck, it's because the system sucks. And I feel like separating yourself from the system helps tremendously mentally for you to be able to reset and move forward, right? And so I honestly love that. So I think that's the end of the podcast. Is there anything else that you want to say, or anything else you want to go over?
Just plug myself on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. It's Kade with a K, K-A-D-E, M.Iller. So shout out myself,
And that is it, folks. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and talking. We're good buddies, we're good friends, and so this has been fun. Being able to talk about discipline, confidence, physical health and fitness, goals, goal setting, consistency, what it really means, all that kind of stuff has been super entertaining today. Felt like I've learned a lot, especially going into the new year. So I think I'll probably upload a couple more episodes before the new year, but if not, Happy New Year and a happy late Christmas to all of you. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Sweet. Dude, that was good.